Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Mountain Harmony Gardening. I'm Kristen, and today we're going to be planting seeds. So I'm a little bit late planting my peppers. I was hoping to have them in last weekend, but life got in the way. I think you probably saw that short by now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my peppers late. And I'm going to plant my tomatoes and some of my flowers early. So I'm going to go over what I'm planting today. I am trying the Kellogg's Breakfast Tomato. Brian with Next Level Gardening has been recommending it for years, so I thought I'd try it. I'm also going to be planting tomatillos, the yellow ones again. I'm going to be doing banana peppers I got free from Baker Creek when I placed my order this year. I'm going to be doing a jalapeno, and it's a lemon spice jalapeno. And then I'm going to be doing Italian pepperoncini peppers. I'm going to be doing petunias because these do really good in our yard. I'm going to try the yarrow again. It didn't get as big as I wanted it last year, but I figured I'd give it another go because it looks like the plants I already have outside from last year are coming back. And then I'm going to do the orange spice jalapenos, which I do every year. And I'm going to do 2 containers of those because I know those do great here. We're going to be doing our huckleberries. And I'm really, really hoping this year that the roly-polies don't eat them. I'm going to do everything I can to protect them. And I'm growing extra just in case. I'm also going to be doing the spoon tomatoes. I love those. Those are such a good snack. And of course, the black cherry tomatoes. Those are another one of our favorites. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill all of this up with soil, and I'll be right back. Before we get started planting today, I want to go over what my setup is for seed starting. First thing is, I am using the Epic 6Ls from Kevin over at Epic Gardening, and they got really large holes on the bottom, and then they also have the slits for air pruning, plus they are really tough. See, I can't bend that at all. And I fell in love with these last year. So that's what I'm going to be using mostly this year in here. And they fit perfectly in some of the trays that I already have. Next is the soil mix that I'm using. It's 50% coconut coir and 50% seed starting mix. This is different than what I did last year because I found out my seed starting mix last year just didn't have enough nutrients in it to really get them off to a good start. So I'm changing it up this year. That's one of the things about gardening is you make a mistake and you decide, you know what, I'm going to change it up next year and hopefully it'll be better. I love that about gardening is you can change it and make it better. So one of the things I wanted to do to make sure that even though the potting mix is supposed to be sterile, I put it outside in my tool shed for about 2 weeks because it's still getting down to freezing to make sure that we don't have any eggs or anything else in there because I do not want fungus gnats in my house. It took me a long time to get rid of all of the fungus gnats I have in my houseplants, and I do not want them coming back in. Also, you want to make sure, like you can see the blue tape on here, that you are labeling everything. And I have found that the blue tape to label the outsides when I'm first starting the seeds is easier to peel off than like masking tape. So I definitely recommend the blue painter's tape and make sure that you label everything before you start planting. Now, once the seeds are up and I can take the dome off, which is right here behind me. So I'll be putting it on here like this, but my plant tags are too tall to fit inside of here with the dome on. So that would make the dome ineffective if it was actually held open. So that's why I go ahead and I use the blue tape, and then I will be labeling them as soon as we're done. So I think for now, those are some good seed starting tips, and now we're going to get to planting. Another thing that I forgot to mention in the last part was that Donnie was so sweet this morning. I am still on workman's comp restrictions, so he went ahead and he mixed up the coconut coir for me and the seed starting mix to make it moist enough that it kind of feels like a wrung out sponge. So it's not like dripping water, but it's definitely moist. And I will be spraying each of these down with a spray bottle once we're done planting. So I like to use a toothpick because it's easy to use and you can throw away at the end, and it makes, not hard, large holes like with your finger. You make a pretty big hole, and these are pretty small seeds. So the first thing that I do is I kind of go through and I make a hole And you can check on the back, like for Baker Creek, they have a list at the top. Well, I guess it's kind of side, but right here of all the facts that you need. So planting depth is only 1/8 of an inch. So that's like hardly anything. It's barely making a dent in the soil. And I just kind of move the soil away a little bit so that I have plenty of space to plant these. Now I'm going to go over, while I'm talking about this, some interesting and fun facts I found about tomatoes and peppers while I was researching for this video. So I'm going to go ahead and get some seeds out here. And also I plant 3 seeds per hole. I know some people like to do just 1 or 2, but I want to make sure that I get plants. And I have found that 3 is a good number for these. And these black cherry tomato seeds are really tiny, so I have to be careful not to dump them all over the place too. So I'm going to go ahead and just put 3 in each of those. One of the facts about tomatoes I found really interesting, and I had no idea, is that they've actually grown tomatoes in outer space. And I was like, wow, I did not know that, and I was really surprised. But I know that they're doing lots of different experiments. But I was kind of surprised for that one, and I thought it was really cool, and I wanted to share it with all of you guys. Okay, now that the cherry tomatoes are in, I'm just going to cover the soil and lightly firm them down. I don't want to bury them too deep in here, and I don't want to press down too much because I want the soil to still be loose, but not too firm. Another thing that you could do when you're filling up your Epic 6 cells or whatever you're using is to kind of give them a good tap, and that way the soil settles down and you make sure that you don't have any air pockets in there, and then you can fill them up again and give them another kind of just a light tap just to make sure that they're completely full. Okay, the next one that I'm doing is our spoon tomatoes. Socks, what are you doing? She's down here walking around below me, and there's stuff on that side of the camera that you can't see because we are still remodeling a bunch of boxes and stuff, and she's getting into stuff. All right, so let's see another tomato fact. So tomatoes are also a good source of vitamin A and C, and let's see what else, potassium and folate. So they are healthy for you. I know some people say to avoid them because they could cause like issues and such, like for me with my fibromyalgia, and they can actually cause some problems. But I haven't found that to be true for me personally, because after I eat them, I usually don't have any issues. Okay, the spoon tomatoes are really small, so I'm just kind of sprinkling some seeds in the hole. I might be getting more than 3. Actually, I can pretty well tell I'm getting more than 3, but that's okay. We can always thin these out as we go along. All right, so those ones are in there. Just gonna cover them up lightly, press them down just a little bit like I was doing with the other ones. Okay, next I'm planting is huckleberries, and I am almost out of the frozen huckleberries from 2 years ago, so I definitely want these to sprout this year and grow really well. If I can get them growing really well, they should do just fine. And it's 1/8 of an inch again for these ones. So you just kind of make a little hole in the top like I've been doing. And let's see, we'll find another fact for you about tomatoes. Okay, so tomatoes, like some of the smaller patio varieties, are really good to grow in containers, or you can grow them in ground. So tomatoes are really versatile that way as well. You can grow them in, on your patio, on your deck. I've grown them on my deck before in a large pot, and they do really good. I've even actually brought a tomato in to the house once, and I grew it inside through the winter. The tomatoes weren't as good, and I had to hand pollinate it, which was kind of a pain, but I still wanted to give it a try and a go, and it lasted for a while, and then it kind of just, died off, and that was okay. But they can be grown inside. And one of these days, when we have more property, I'm going to have a proper greenhouse. All right, there are the huckleberries. Now...